Why is it so impossible for motorcycle manufacturers to come up with the bike that we all want? Is it really that hard? It must be, because
there is no perfect bike.
Join us for the ride of a lifetime.
Let's watch an idiot try to ride a motorcycle. Some guy rides.
Now, before we start, I want to make one thing absolutely clear. I don't know what I'm talking about. There are other people out there who do, and you should watch them for some real facts and figures and stuff like that. Another disclaimer I want to get out of the way before I start this is that I am most likely going to insult your motorcycle in this video. I'd like to apologize in advance. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and it's not my fault that people are nearsighted and have cataracts and think ugly motorcycles are cool. And these are just my opinions and should be regarded with disdain and dismissal because I am an expert in nothing, especially motorcycles. Now, we're all going to have a different definition of a perfect bike anyway, so I'm just going to talk about what my definition of a perfect bike is for me. Number one, it has to look cool. I'll go into more detail about what that means a little bit later, but for me, number one, it's got to have just a little bit of soul. Not sure what I'm talking about there, but it does. It has to have a round headlight. The fact that there are motorcycles that don't have round headlights is outrageous to me. Just breathe. It's going to be okay. There can't be a ton of plastic. I'd like for it to actually look like a motorcycle. And I'm going to talk about where my idea of the aesthetic of a beautiful motorcycle comes from a little bit later. So if you'll notice, I really only have one thing on my list of the perfect motorcycle. It has to look cool. Now, there are some other things that are semi-important to me. Obviously, the bike has to do what I need it to do, which is get me out in the middle of the woods. So here are a couple of things that make that a little bit easier for me. Seat height, I'm a short person, so a big, tall bike is no good for me. The weight of the bike is pretty important. I just don't have fun on huge bikes in messy situations. Okay, wheels. I used to be very into mountain biking, and I switched to a bike that had the 29er big wheels, and the difference was incredible. I could get over rocks and stumps and just about anything. And for that reason, I do like the big 21-inch front wheel matched with a 17-inch back wheel, which seems to be the configuration of most adventure bikes. Some perks for me would be tubeless tires. I don't have a good history with flats, and tubeless tires would be incredible. Cruise control would be really nice on those long bits of slab that you have to do. And a 6-speed is something that I have dreamed about because I currently have a bike that has a 4-speed and the other one has 5 speeds. You know, when you're on the highway, having that sort of overdrive situation to go to, that would be kind of nice. I also dream of a bike that has shaft drive. I am lazy. I hate chain maintenance. I hate having to think about it. I hate having to bring the lube. I hate everything about it. Chains suck. I want a shaft drive. I think you lose some horsepower or whatever with a shaft drive. I don't care. Give me a shaft drive bike, please. And also, obviously, I want a bike that's highway capable. Sometimes for the kind of trips I want to do, you just got to hit the highway for a while. And I don't enjoy doing that on a bike that is underpowered with traffic coming up your ass or feels shaky or just isn't supposed to be going as fast as you need to go on a highway. So something that feels semi-stable and comfortable on a highway would be nice. Here are a couple of things that should be important to me, but aren't. Suspension travel, ground clearance, I don't care. If there's 6 inches of clearance, that's probably fine for me. Yes, I bottom out occasionally and maybe more clearance would be better. I don't know, and I don't care. Torque is fun. I don't really care. CCs and horsepower. I just don't care. I don't care. I've ridden bigger bikes with more power and I love it. They're fun. Twisting the throttle and having things happen is kind of great. It's definitely a lot of fun, but it's not on the top of my list. I don't care. I just want something that's going to get me from where I am way out into the woods where no one is. I don't need to be thrown back in the saddle and I don't need to get there quickly. I don't really care. So my definition of a perfect bike is probably different than yours. My perfect bike is under 350 pounds, has a seat height of under 32 inches with 21-inch front and 17-inch back wheels, tubeless tires, cruise control, 6-speed transmission with shaft drive, and is highway capable. That should be super easy to find. All through the 90s, I was in a touring rock band. And when you're in a rock band, when you do interviews, the very first thing they ask you is, what bands influenced the music you're making now? And I think it's that same idea for what forms our idea of what a perfect motorcycle is. And of course, that's going to be different for everyone. For me, like probably many of you, my ideas of coolness came from movies and TV. And it wasn't the motorcycles that jumped out at me as being cool. The characters who were riding them were cool, which made the motorcycles cool. So what gets lodged in your head is if I drive a motorcycle that looks like that, I'm going to be as cool as Marlon Brando or Steve McQueen or Evel Knievel or Peter O'Toole. It's the same way we're sold everything from breath-mints to automobiles. We see someone who we want to be doing something, and we want to do that thing too. Why did I develop a fetish for round headlights other than the fact that round headlights are proper? It's going to be okay. Well, let's try this. Can you imagine Marlon Brando riding a KTM 890? Can you imagine Steve McQueen trying to escape the Nazis on a Suzuki V-Strom? Don't make me root for the Nazis. And again, full apologies to KTM and V-Strom owners. And by that, I mean, I'm sorry that you own ugly bikes that neither Marlon nor Steve would ever consider riding. In my adolescent brain, it was like Sophia Loren, Valerie Bertinelli, and Farrah Fawcett. That's what informed my idea of female beauty, right or wrong. And to keep things balanced and non-gender specific, I also found Tom Selleck, Scott Baio, and David Cassidy quite fetching. And in the same way, it was those Harley choppers, that Triumph Thunderbird 6T, the Bro Superior SS100, and the Triumph TR6R. Those are the bikes that shaped my idea of what the perfect motorcycle is. I didn't know what those bikes were at the time. I didn't care. Honestly, I didn't know what they were called until I looked it up just now. But they were imprinted on my brain as an ideal to aspire to. Now, you may look at those bikes and wonder, then why did you ride a Trail 70? Why was your first real bike a Honda Shadow 500? Followed by a Honda Shadow 700, followed by a horrible Suzuki Intruder. Well, like most things, the problem with attaining your ideal motorcycle is money. But those Easy Rider choppers instilled some sort of Harley thing into my body, and those Japanese Harley ripoffs, that's what I could afford. But now I'm into adventure riding. So what's out there that might fit into the aesthetic that I aspire to? In 2 words, not much. Like most men with emotional depth, when I'm having a relationship problem or I'm trying to tell someone how I feel, or if I have an issue of any kind, really, I usually turn to a spreadsheet. So here's my bike spreadsheet. On the left here, you'll see that I have the make and model of the motorcycle. And across the top here, I have things that maybe I want to know about. So, of course, for me, my priority is looks. Second priority, headlight, which should be round. Price, that's something I didn't mention before. That's quite important. And then the weight, seat height, tires, are they tubeless or tubed? Drive chain, is it chain drive or shaft drive? Fuel capacity, that's pretty important. Didn't mention that before. How many gears does it have? And then this stuff isn't as important to me, as you can see by how lamely it's filled out. Ground clearance, engine capacity, horsepower, torque. And that's about it. For those of you who are not into spreadsheets, which is basically the same thing as not being into motorcycles with round headlights, here's a graphic version of that same spreadsheet with all the bikes that I have looked at, have considered, have been interested in, or whatever. So let's go through and see what we can do about getting rid of some of these right away. First of all, let's take a look at the movie bikes. While I would love to own any one of these bikes or all 4 of them, they're not too practical. Price range wise, I don't think I could afford any of these. And the Harley probably wouldn't do great on War Loop Road and that sort of thing. So these bikes are, number one, they're out of my price range. Number 2, they're old and just wouldn't be good all around adventure bikes for me. So let's take those out of the mix. And here's some old bikes I have on the list. I don't know why. The Yamaha XT500, NE70s BSA, I love. Kawasaki Bushwhacker 175, cool looking bike. Suzuki Van, I thought seriously about buying that for the tat, believe it or not. Anyway, these bikes are old. For some reason, I have a thing about fuel injection. I want it. While these are cool, and while I'd love to have some in the garage, they're not great for what I'm doing. Now we have to take a look at a bike that I have used as an adventure bike, and let's just be honest, it should not be used as an adventure bike unless you're in a goofy mood. It's incredibly fun. It's a bike that I probably won't ever sell, and it's great on the trails, except for the tiny little bicycle wheels aren't great in sand or rocky situations. It has 0 power, so getting up certain inclines can be a challenge. It is very light, but when you put a bunch of luggage on it, it really isn't the greatest thing for long trips. What can I say? I love this bike. I love it. Will I take it on more long adventures? Probably. Unfortunately, it is not the perfect adventure bike. All right, let's move on to some of the stuff that's out there now. Let's start with the granddaddy of them all, the BMW GS. This bike is probably, I have done no research and so I don't know, but it's probably the best-selling, most popular adventure bike of all time. There's a billion different iterations of this bike. The ones from Long Way Round with Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman, those were, let's see, they were BMW R1150 GS. But anyway, you've seen these bikes everywhere. People love them, and there must be something good about them because people are just fanatics about them. Here's the problem. I don't know this for sure, but I think these are the bikes that caused all of the ugliness problems we're now facing. Now, there is some debate about this. I think some people will tell you that it was Suzuki who introduced this problem, but sometime in the late 80s, this happened. Here's how I imagine it going down. Okay, let's set the scene. It's the late 80s. We're in a giant corporate boardroom at BMW in Munich, Germany, and somebody is about to present a big idea. I attempted a German accent, but we're not going to go there today. But here's what I believe happened. This young upstart is sitting at the table. All the old fogies are sitting around looking for new ideas. They want to innovate. They want something big. They want something that's going to sell. So this youngster stands up, grabs everyone's attention, and says, "Gentlemen, I have the new motorcycle design that is going to push us into the 90s and beyond. I want you all to imagine the coolest animals you can." And the old fogies are yelling out, "Mustang, Jaguar, Cougar." And the guy's like, "No, those are old school animals. We want to go into the future. Now listen to me." And he's got an easel and it's covered in a cloth, and he walks over to it and he says to them, "Imagine a motorcycle that looks like a praying mantis mixed with a pelican." And he pulls the cloth off of the easel, and there is a horrible, horrible motorcycle. I imagine this moment to be the same as if you're in a lab and someone lets some sort of horrendous virus escape. Now, all the old fogies, they look at it and they say to themselves, "That is the ugliest piece of crap I have ever seen in my life." But they're scared because they don't want to be left in the past. Now, to that guy in the boardroom back then, maybe it was a woman, I don't want to be gender specific, but to whoever that person was in that boardroom in Munich in the late 80s, you are a asshole. You have ruined motorcycles for decades. I despise you. Just breathe. And I believe you should be brought up on terrorism charges. I believe that moment, wherever it was, if it was at Suzuki, BMW, whatever, it's the most horrible thing to happen to motorcycles since the beginning of motorcycles. Who wants a bike that looks like a praying mantis pelican? Who? No one. I'm just speaking for myself. No, by no one, I mean, I don't want that. I hate it so much, I can't even tell you. To those of you who do like that style, I don't understand you. What's wrong with you? Please tell me in the comments. If anyone thinks a bike that looks like this is cool, I want to hear about it. I want to hear about why. They are horrible. And so maybe there were odd-shaped headlights before this, but this is when things got truly out of control. A triangle headlight is a crime against humanity. And whoever started it, BMW or Suzuki, I don't know. But then everybody else copied them. Now, I think some of these reasons were there were new components coming out. Bikes were becoming liquid cooled. They needed to design things differently to cover these ugly parts that didn't look like a motorcycle. That's why I personally like air-cooled bikes. They just look cooler because they don't have a radiator. They also wanted to change the height, which made the bikes look weird. So they were trying to develop things to make it look, I don't know, better, but they failed. So you've got the KTM bikes. Terrible. Look at that headlamp. That's the most terrible thing I've ever seen in my life. I do not want to ride an insect. Ugh, it just makes me... All right, what other atrocities do we have here? Okay, the Aprilia Touareg 660. Supposedly a great bike to ride, just super cool, but look at it. Look at all this plastic. Look at this headlight. Oh my God, it's terrible. KLR 650, bulletproof bike. Look at this wall of plastic here. It's just horrible. Look at the headlight. Come on, you can't ride that. Okay, the Honda's CL500, and I think now it's called the NX500. Again, look at all this plastic. Look at this horribleness up front. The new Transalp. Okay, we've all seen Dork in the Road and Big Rock Moto's reviews of that, and they seem to love these bikes. And honestly, it doesn't look that bad to me. I don't know why, but somehow they've figured out how to make it fairly attractive. Like the radiator, it's big and noticeable right there, but somehow on this black one, at least, it sort of blends in. You can see the engine. It doesn't have sidewalls of plastic, but still, look at the front here. I can't abide by this. This is not good. Okay, Kawasaki Versus 650. Look at the front of this thing. You've got like, oh my God, the pelicanness of it is horrendous. I hate everything about this bike. I'm just talking looks. I'm sure it's awesome. I'm sure it's awesome. And then we've got the Suzuki V-Strom. Again, people love these bikes. And they've kind of tricked me here with the round headlight. But no, it's just the beak, the pelican. I just don't like it. It's not attractive to me at all. Okay, the Norden 901. This is a bike I would love to own. Again, it's trying to trick me with this round headlight. But look at this giant wall of plastic over here. Horrible. Horrible. It's a motorcycle. Let me see a motorcycle. We're not in the movie Tron. Honda CRF 300L Rally. Okay. Beautiful bike. Probably would be awesome for the things that I do. It's too tall for me, number one. But then all this plastic, I can't even see the engine. Oh, there's a little bit right there. Horrible. Kind of round headlights, but those don't count. This bike is horrible looking. Suzuki DR650. Okay, you've heard me talk about this bike. I want one. I rode John's. It's beautiful. It has lots of power. It's tough. There's parts for miles. There's mods for miles. But look at this big plastic thing. I hate it. At least you can see the engine. That's nice. But come on, this square headlight? Why? Why, Suzuki? It's so ugly. Hate it. Okay, the KTM 390 Adventure also would probably be a great bike for me. Look at this stupid ass headlight. Oh my God, what are you doing? I'm not Ant-Man. I don't want to ride this. It's just freaking horrible. Okay, the Yamaha T7, again, just horrible. Too much plastic. Oh, you get to see this little nub of engine right there. The front end is terrible. It's all this plastic. The graphics are stupid. I hate it. Suzuki DRZ 400. I'd love to love this bike, but is that a square headlight I see? Why, yes, it is. Bunch of plastic up here. At least you can see the engine. I don't know. I'm sure I would love that bike, but no, I can't. Yamaha T-Dub, brilliant bike. Okay, this one I could almost just own because yes, it's got a lot of plastic over here, but you can see the engine. I mean, the square headlight though, come on, but it's got these big tires that sort of counter that ugliness of the headlight. I don't know. I would almost own this. I mean, look, the CT125 is one of the ugliest bikes I've ever seen, but I love it because it has a sense to have a round headlight. Anyway, those are a bunch of modern, sort of really good, well-liked adventure bikes that probably a lot of you own. And I apologize again for hating your bike, but I just think they're so freaking ugly. Please fight me in the comments. I know I'm going to get flamed for all of this, but I can't help it. It's just my taste, and everybody's got a different thing. I just hate all those bikes' looks. I hate them. I hate all of them. Why not just make them look cool? What is the issue? Okay, so now what we're left with is bikes that I actually like the way they look. I think they look cool. I would feel proud getting on one. I would feel okay having my picture taken next to it. So let's take a look at a few of these. The Janus Griffin. This is a bike that Johnny Powell looked seriously at for the Tat. And I mean, I love this bike. Look at it. It looks like a motorcycle. It's obviously retro. I mean, some people think that building a bike that looks old is uncool. I get that. It's kind of hipsterish and you need a certain type of facial hair to ride a bike like this. You need to use artisan shaving cream and stuff like that. I know. I get it. It's a little much, but it looks cool. It's got what's supposed to be a solid Chinese engine, but it's a 250. It's a little small for what I want to do. But if I didn't have the CT125, I might get that. I just would feel cool riding that bike around. Steve McQueen, Marlon Brando, they would ride this bike. Okay, the Fantic Caballero 500. I've always loved this bike. I think this bike looks great. It's a good size. It's a decent weight. I mean, I would love to have this bike. but you can't get it in the United States as far as I know. So that's out. Okay, the Moto Guzzi V85 TT. This is a bike that has shaft drive.
Sex machine to all the cheeks.
I think every bike should have shaft drive.
You're damn right.
I get that it probably adds some cost to the bike, but please just make all bikes shaft drive so we don't have to deal with chain maintenance. Please, please. As a lot of you know, I rode this bike through the desert for 5 days to test it out because I was very seriously thinking about getting one. It's just too heavy for what I'm doing now. If I had unlimited garage space and unlimited money, I would surely own this bike. There's no doubt in my mind. It is beautiful. It's powerful enough for me. I just love it. It's a classy bike. It just feels great. When you're idling, it sort of shakes you back and forth from the Transverse V-Twin. It's a great feeling bike. I hate using motorcycle reviewer words, but it has character for sure. I love the way it looks. I love the styling. There's very little plastic on it. It's got 2 cool round headlights. Unfortunately, it's just too heavy for me, so it's out for now. The Ducati Desert Sled. This is a bike that Johnny Powell almost bought too. And man, does this bike look cool. I just don't know if it's set up for adventure travel. Like you got to get racks for the bags. And I don't know. It's just not quite set up. A guy did take one around the world. I haven't watched those videos, but I bet it was awesome. And this is a bike that I would love to own as well. Speaking of all the bikes Johnny Powell wants, he just put some money down on this next one. Triumph Scrambler 400X. It's coming out soon. I don't know when, maybe February. This is a sharp looking bike. I mean, Triumphs always look cool. They usually have that retro thing going on that I like, you know, the old 70s Scrambler look that is just so sharp. Again, I don't know if this is set up for long adventure riding. Johnny Powell's going to find out about that and we can all watch his videos to see. But again, this is another bike I would love to own. Then there's the bike I have, a 2021 Himalayan. I love it. I love everything about it. I think it looks great. I think it rides great. Most people are going to think it doesn't have enough power. And I mean, it doesn't. That's kind of okay with me. It's okay on the highway, although you definitely could use a couple more horsepower on the highway. That's where it's weakest. But for me, it's been a great bike overall. The only problem is the weight. It's too heavy. When I was doing the Tour de Coalfields, there were some spots that I really had some trouble because of the weight. Mostly I can handle everything on it, but I wish it was a little lighter. Then we have the upcoming 2024 Himalayan. They're out in India, I think now. I think they've launched in Europe. I've talked to the Himalayan dealership here and they don't know when they're coming out, but yeah, I would think by April, maybe they'll be out. I don't know. I really don't know. This bike looks great to me. It looks great to me. When I first saw it, I was like, I like the styling of the old ones a lot better. I like the smaller gas tank. I like the way the front guards were styled. But the more I look at this bike, the more I love it. It's got twice the horsepower. It's got all kinds of improvements. I kind of hate the big digital lollipop dashboard. I'd much prefer they stayed with the analog gauges. Other than that, I think this bike would be perfect for me. Again, it's a little bit lighter than the one I have. Unfortunately, it's liquid cooled, so they've added a radiator, which I don't like, but that is how they're saving the weight because they got rid of a bunch of stuff on the engine, the fins and all that. So I don't know. While it's not perfect, I like the way it looks and it would do everything I need. It's just a bit heavy. For me, I think this is my next bike. My unicorn bike is 350 pounds, shaft drive, tubeless tires, cruise control, and of course, most importantly, looks cool. It doesn't exist. And you knew where this was going from the beginning. The perfect bike is whichever bike is in your garage or whichever bike you can afford to buy. If I can have a blast doing 5,000 miles on an 8 horsepower bike, then any bike will do, as long as it has a round headlight.
Hey, please like this video if you liked this video, and if you'd like to see more, hit that subscribe button and the alert bell. Also, if you're interested, there are links to gear lists and goofy t-shirts in the description. Thanks a ton for watching.